Welcome, my stars and garters, to episode 29 of Michael Reads from a Book, the series in which I read from a book. Today's book of choice is Jean-Jacques Rousseau's Confessions, with an edition translated by Angela Scholar. That is either a fake name, or she has definitely picked the right career. We're going to jump to book 7, for no particular reason whatsoever. So here we are. These notebooks full of errors of every kind and which I have not even had time to reread are enough to set on the right track any lover of truth, and to provide him with the means to ascertain in his own inquiries. Unfortunately, it seems to me unlikely and even impossible that they will escape the vigilance of my enemies. If they should fall into the hands of an honest man, or into those of Monsieur de Choiseul's friends, if they reach Monsieur de Choiseul himself, I will not think the honor of my memory to be beyond recourse. But, O heaven, protector of the innocent, defend these last testimonies to my innocence from the hands of Mesdames de Beaufils, de Verdelin, and their friends. Shield at least from these two furies, to whom you have abandoned him during his lifetime, the memory of an unfortunate man. After 2 years of silence and patience, in spite of my resolutions, I take up my pen again. Reader, suspend your judgment on the reasons that you force me to this, or the reasons that force me to this. Before you can judge them, you must hear what I have to say. You must have seen how my beautiful youth flowed in a life that was even and sometimes sweet, untouched either by the great reversals or by good fortune. This absence of extremes was in large part the work of a temperament which, although ardent, was feeble, less eager to initiate than it was prone to discouragement, which shook itself out of inaction only to sink into it again through lassitude and inclination, and which, returning me always to the indolent and tranquil life for which, far removed from any greater virtue, and still farther from any greater vice, I felt it had been born, has never allowed me to achieve anything great, whether for good or for evil. How different a picture I will soon have to unfold! Destiny, which for 30 years favored my natural leanings, opposed them for the next 30, and this perpetual conflict between my situations and my inclination gave rise, as we shall see, to huge errors, unheard of misfortunes, and to every virtue except strength that can bring honor to adversity. My full part was written entirely from memory and is no doubt full of mistakes. Since I am forced to write the second from memory too, I will probably make many more. The sweet recollection of my happiest years, spent as much in tranquillity as in innocence, have left 1,000 charming impressions upon my mind, which I never tire of recalling. We shall soon see how different are those that belong to the rest of my life. To remember them is to renew their bitterness, rather than exacerbate, I hate them, that of my situation. By dwelling on these sad memories, I avoid them as far as is possible, and I often succeed in this to the point of not being able to find them again when I need them. This capacity for forgetting is a consolation vouchsafed me by heaven in the midst of the woe that destiny was one day to heap upon me. My memories, which will only retrace agreeable objects, is this blessed counterweight to the terrified imagination, which foresees nothing for me but a cruel future. All the papers I have assembled for the purpose of supplementing my memory and guiding me in this undertaking have passed into other hands and will never return to mine. I am left with only one faithful guide on which I can rely, and this is the chain of feelings that have marked the successive stages of my being, and through them are the events that were the cause or effect. I easily forget my misfortunes, but I cannot forget my faults, and I forget still less readily my better feelings. Their memory is too clear to me ever to be erased from my heart. I can make factual omissions, transpositions, errors in date, but I cannot be mistaken about what I felt, nor about what my feelings led me to do, and this is what principally concerns me here. The particular object of my confessions is to make known my inner self exactly as it was in every circumstances of my life. It is the history of my soul that I promised, and to relate it faithfully I require no other memorandum. All I need do, as I have done up till now, is to look inside myself. There is, however, and very fortunately, an interval of some 6 or 7 years for which I have reliable information provided by a collection of transcribed letters, whose origins are in the hands of Monsieur de Péru. This collection, which ends in 1760, covers the whole period of my stay at the Hermitage, and of my great quarrel with my so-called friends, a memorable epoch in my life, and one that was the source of all the other misfortunes. As regards any more recent original letters I may still have, of which are not very many, instead of adding them to the end of the collection, already too voluminous for me to be able to hope to conceal it from Argus eyes watching me, I will transcribe them into the present account wherever they seem to provide some clarification, whether this is to my advantage or my detriment, for I am not afraid that the reader will forget for a moment that it was my confessions that I am offering, and conclude that it is my apology. But nor should it be expected to me to conceal the truth when it speaks in my favor. For the rest, my second part has in common with the first only this same veracity, while it has only advantage over it in the importance of the matters related. Apart from that, it can only be inferior to it in every way. I wrote my first part in a spirit of pleasure, of indulgence, and at my ease, whether at Wotton or the Chateau de Trailles. Each memory that I need to recall was a source of new delight, for which I returned repeatedly and always with renewed pleasure, freely rephrasing my descriptions until I was content with what I had written. Today my memory and my mind have grown feeble and are almost incapable of the work. It is only by forcing myself and with a heavy heart with anguish, or a heart heavy with anguish, that I can continue my present task. Yeah, I took a course on Rousseau. It was, the first grad course I'd ever taken. It was kind of jumping into the deep end as far as scholarly topics go. I remember that in order to explain Rousseau, the professor had us read De Man and Derrida, which is a lot like trying to open a door by adding a padlock, but it definitely left an impression of good old Rousseau on me. Yeah, he was how to describe Rousseau, an 18th century French philosopher, very big on the individual, the rights of freedom, and in the Confessions, he's very big on the idea of truth, that he feels he is a man who has been hard done by, that he has enemies who are plaguing his every word and every action, that there are various people spying on him, and the only recourse he can find is to write down as much of the truth as he can possibly bear. And it gets pretty weird at points. I mean, this is a guy that wrote a book on how to educate children, and in the Confessions says that he fathered a number of children and then just gave them to orphanages because he didn't think he could raise them up to his own standards. Issues the guy has. I guess this is a portrait of him. There we go. Anyway, that is enough talking about 18th century philosophers for today. See you next time.